The alarm in the communication room of the USS Ranger cut through the quiet hum of deep space travel. Commander Lisa Carter jumped from her chair and ran to the main console. The screen showed something she had never seen before. Strange symbols and patterns flowed across the display like water. "Captain Morrison to the bridge," she called over the ship's speaker system. Jake Morrison arrived within minutes, still putting on his uniform jacket. His gray hair was messy from sleep, but his eyes were sharp and alert. 20 years of military service had taught him to wake up fast when duty called. "What do we have, Lisa?" he asked, looking at the strange display. "Unknown signal, sir. It's coming from 3 star systems away. The computer says it's some kind of quantum transmission. Very advanced technology." Dr. Amy Foster walked onto the bridge carrying her tablet and a cup of coffee. She was the ship's expert on alien life forms, though they had never actually met any aliens before. Earth's space program was still young. "The signal is trying to translate itself," Amy said, studying her readings. "Whatever sent this message has technology that can learn our language just by listening to our radio waves." Jake nodded. "Can we understand it yet?" "Getting clearer, sir," Lisa replied. She adjusted the controls, and slowly the strange symbols began to change into English words. The voice that came through the speakers was soft and musical but filled with fear. "Please, anyone who can hear this message, we need help. My name is Vextar of the Zilani people. Our world is dying." The bridge fell silent. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. After 50 years of searching for life in space, humanity had finally found it, and it was asking for help. "We are a peaceful people," the voice continued. "We have never made war. We have never needed to fight. But now the Korthak have come. They destroy everything. They eat everything. 17 worlds have fallen to their swarms." Amy's face went pale. "Captain, if this is real—" "It's real," Jake said quietly. He had seen enough in his military career to know the sound of genuine terror. "Keep listening." The message continued for several minutes. Vextar explained how the Korthak Empire moved from world to world like a plague of giant insects. They consumed entire civilizations, taking their resources and leaving nothing behind but empty planets. "We have tried to run," Vextar said. "We have tried to hide. But they always find us. They seem to enjoy the hunt. Other species have tried to help us, but when the Korthak show themselves, our allies run away in fear." The alien's voice became even sadder. "We know we will die soon. Our last ship holds what remains of our people. But before we die, we want to try one more time. We have detected a new species in this part of the galaxy. You call yourselves humans. We have listened to your radio signals. We know you fight each other often. Perhaps you know how to fight others too." Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. Lisa's hands were tight on her console. Amy was taking notes quickly on her tablet. Even Ben Rodriguez, his tactical officer who had just arrived, was listening with complete attention. "We can offer you something valuable," Vextar continued. "We know the location of a perfect world for your people. Rich soil, clean water, perfect climate. And we have medical technology that can heal injuries your doctors cannot fix. All we ask is that you help us fight the Korthak." The message ended with coordinates and technical data about the alien ship's location. Jake was quiet for a long moment. Then he turned to his crew. "Ben, what do you think about this tactical situation?" Ben studied the data on his screen. "Sir, according to this information, the Korthak have over 2 million warriors. Their ships are huge. Each one is like a living creature. They fight in swarms like angry bees. And we have one ship with a crew of 200, Lisa added. "Right," Jake said. "Amy, what can you tell me about these aliens?" Amy looked up from her tablet. "The Zilani seem to be very advanced in science and medicine, but they've never developed weapons or military technology. They're completely peaceful. They've never even seen war until now. And the Korthak? They're the opposite. Everything about them is designed for war and destruction. They've been conquering worlds for thousands of years. They're bigger than humans, stronger, and they have natural armor like insects." Jake walked to the front window of the bridge and looked out at the stars. Earth was behind them, millions of miles away. His home planet, where humans had been fighting and surviving for thousands of years. "Sir," Lisa said quietly, "we should probably report this to Earth Command and wait for orders." "That would take months," Ben replied. "By then, these Zilani people will be dead." Jake thought about his homeworld. Earth was not a kind planet. Earthquakes, hurricanes, volcanoes, ice ages, and countless other disasters had shaped humanity. For millions of years, humans had learned to fight not just each other but their own planet. They had survived because they never gave up, even when things seemed hopeless. "Amy," he said, "in your opinion, why haven't any other species been able to help the Zilani?" "From what I can tell, sir, most alien species evolved on peaceful worlds. They developed intelligence and technology without needing to fight for survival every day. When they meet something truly dangerous, they don't know how to respond." "But humans do." "Yes, sir. We come from what scientists call a death world. Almost everything on Earth has tried to kill us at some point. Weather, animals, diseases, natural disasters. We learn to fight back or die." Jake made his decision. "Lisa, send a message back to Vextar. Tell him we're coming." "Sir?" Lisa looked surprised. "We're going to help them." Ben stepped forward. "Captain, we're just one ship. We don't have enough firepower to fight an empire." Jake smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a predator. "Ben, you're thinking like someone from a peaceful world. We're not going to fight their empire. We're going to teach them why they should be afraid of humans." Amy looked worried. "Sir, we don't know anything about fighting in space against aliens." "No," Jake agreed. "But we know how to fight. And we know how to win when everyone thinks we should lose. That's what humans do best." He turned to face his crew. "Send the message, Lisa. Tell them that help is coming. Tell them that humans never abandon people who need protection." As Lisa began typing the response, Jake looked back out at the stars. Somewhere out there, an ancient evil was destroying innocent people. But they had made one mistake. They had threatened someone that humans had decided to protect. The Korthak Empire was about to learn why Earth was the only planet in the galaxy where the dominant species had turned their world's attempts to kill them into an evolutionary advantage. They were about to meet Deathworlders who were very, very angry. The USS Ranger dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Zephyria system. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, watching the main screen as it showed them what they were facing. "My God," whispered Commander Lisa Carter. 3. Korthak fleet filled the space around the planet like a dark cloud. Dozens of massive ships that looked more like living creatures than machines. Each one was the size of a small city, covered in what looked like black armor plates. Strange lights pulsed along their sides in patterns that hurt to look at. "Those lights," said Dr. Amy Foster, studying her instruments. "They're designed to cause fear. The patterns trigger panic responses in most alien brain types. Psychological warfare," said Lieutenant Commander Ben Rodriguez from his tactical station. "They scare their enemies before they even start fighting." Hidden behind the planet's largest moon was a single alien ship, much smaller than the Korthak. Vessels. It was beautiful, made of some kind of white metal that seemed to glow with its own light. This had to be the Zilani ship. "Lisa, open a channel to that ship," Jake ordered. The screen changed to show the inside of the alien vessel. The being looking back at them was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large, kind eyes. This was Vextar, though he looked much older, and more tired than his voice had suggested. "Humans," Vextar said, and his voice was filled with both hope and sadness. "You came. I did not think anyone would come." "We keep our promises," Jake replied. "What's your current situation?" "We have been hiding here for 6 days. The Korthak know we are here, but they are not in a hurry. They like to let their prey suffer with fear before they attack. It is part of their nature." Another alien appeared. On the screen, an older female with silver markings on her face. "I am High Counselor Yendai. Captain Morrison, we are grateful you have come, but I must tell you the truth. We have sent messages to 12 different species asking for help. All of them ran away when they saw the Korthak fleet. We're not like other species, Jake said simply. Ben was studying the enemy ships on his tactical display. Captain, I'm counting 47 Korthak vessels. Each one has enough firepower to destroy a city. They're arranged in a perfect hunting formation. Any weaknesses? Jake asked. They fight in swarm patterns, Ben replied, pulling up the combat data the Zilani had sent them. Look at this footage from previous battles. They move together like insects, overwhelming their enemies with pure numbers. But they're predictable. They use the same attack patterns every time. Amy was analyzing the biological data about the Korthak warriors. Captain, according to this information, the Korthak have never lost a battle. Ever. They've been conquering worlds for over 3,000 years. There's a first time for everything, Jake said. He turned to his chief engineer. Kate, what can you do with our weapon systems? Chief Engineer Kate Sullivan looked up from her tablet. She was a small woman with oil-stained hands and a mind that could turn anything into a weapon. Sir, our standard weapons won't do much against those bioships, but I have some ideas. I'm listening. The Korthak ships are living creatures, right? That means they feel pain. Our kinetic weapons might not destroy them, but they'll hurt like hell. And pain makes it hard to think clearly. She pointed to her tablet. I can modify our missile warheads to carry different payloads, some with chemicals that will make their ships sick, others with sonic devices that will give them the worst headache they've ever had. Do it, Jake ordered. Also, sir, I noticed something in the technical data. The Korthak use biological systems for everything, including their communications. Dr. Foster, could you create something that would interfere with their ability to talk to each other? Amy nodded quickly. Yes, I think so. If I can develop a chemical that disrupts their pheromone communication, it would be like jamming their radios. They'd lose coordination completely. How long do you need? Jake asked. Give me 12 hours, Amy replied. You have 6, Jake said. Kate, how long for the weapon modifications? 4 hours, sir. Jake turned back to the screen where the Zilani leaders were watching with growing amazement. Vextar, we need you to send us everything you know about Korthak biology, ship design, and combat tactics. Of course, but Captain Morrison, I must ask, are you planning to attack them directly? With just one ship? Yes. High Counselor Yendai looked shocked. But that is impossible. You will be destroyed instantly. Jake smiled, and it was not a friendly smile. Counselor, let me explain something about humans. We come from a planet that spent millions of years trying to kill us. We learned to survive by being more dangerous than everything else. He gestured to his crew. These people have ancestors who survived ice ages, volcanic eruptions, plagues, and predators that were bigger and stronger than them. We learned that when something tries to kill you, the best defense is to kill it first. The aliens looked confused. Vextar spoke carefully. But the Korthak are so much larger than you, so much stronger. Size doesn't matter, Ben said from his station. What matters is being willing to do whatever it takes to win. Amy looked up from her work. The Korthak have never faced an enemy that fights back effectively. All their previous enemies either ran away or fought defensive battles. They've never encountered a species that understands offensive warfare. Kate added, they're bullies, and bullies usually don't know what to do when someone hits back harder than they hit. Jake nodded. We're going to do something they've never seen before. We're going to attack them first, attack them hard, and keep attacking them until they wish they'd never heard of humans. Over the next few hours, the USS Ranger became a floating weapons factory. Kate and her engineering team worked frantically to modify every weapon system on the ship. They turned mining charges into ship-to-ship missiles. They converted the food processors into chemical weapon delivery systems. They even rigged the waste disposal system to launch toxic materials at enemy ships. Amy worked in her laboratory, creating chemical compounds that would disrupt Korthak biology. She developed a gas that would interfere with their breathing, another that would make their skin burn, and most importantly, a pheromone disruptor that would turn their communication system into chaos. Ben studied the enemy formations and developed attack plans that no sane military officer would ever consider. His strategy was based on one simple principle: do the opposite of what the enemy expects. Meanwhile, Marine Sergeant Tony Blake was preparing his soldiers for something no human had ever done before: boarding actions against alien warships. He was a big man with scars from a dozen different conflicts on Earth, and he was looking forward to adding some alien scars to his collection. "Listen up," Tony told his Marines. "We're about to fight enemies that are bigger than us, stronger than us, and have natural armor, but they've never fought humans before. They don't know that we're crazy enough to fight in conditions that would kill most other species." As the final preparations were made, Jake sent one last message to the Korthak fleet. It was broadcast on all frequencies in every language the ship's computer could manage. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human vessel USS Ranger. You have threatened innocent people under our protection. You have one chance to leave this system peacefully. If you refuse, we will show you why humans are the most dangerous species in the galaxy." The response came quickly. A harsh, clicking voice filled with arrogance and hunger. "Tiny humans. We have consumed species far greater than you. We will eat your ship and use your bones to pick our teeth." Jake looked around his bridge at his crew. They were all smiling now, and it was the smile of predators who had just been given permission to hunt. "Well," he said, "they had their chance. Battle stations, everyone. Time to show them what happens when you threaten humans." The battle began exactly how no one expected it to begin. Instead of waiting for the Korthak fleet to attack, Captain Jake Morrison ordered the USS Ranger to charge straight into the middle of their formation at maximum speed. The ship's engines screamed as they pushed past safety limits, and every piece of metal on the vessel shook like it might fall apart. "Are you insane?" High Counselor Yendai shouted over the communication channel from the Zilani ship. She was watching in horror as the tiny human vessel flew directly toward 47 enemy warships that could each destroy it with a single shot. "Probably," Jake replied calmly. "Ben, give me everything we've got." Lieutenant Commander Ben Rodriguez smiled as his fingers danced over the weapons controls. "Gladly, sir." The first surprise came when the USS Ranger opened fire. Instead of the careful, precise shots that most space battles used, the humans fired everything at once. Missiles, energy beams, kinetic slugs, and Kate Sullivan's modified chemical weapons all launched together in a storm of destruction. But that wasn't the strangest part. The strangest part was the music. Kate had rigged the ship's communication system to broadcast Earth music at frequencies that interfered with Korthak hearing. Heavy metal music, war drums, and human battle songs filled space around the enemy fleet. The sound waves hit the bioships and made their living hulls vibrate painfully. The Korthak warriors inside their ships clutched their heads as the music attacked their sensitive hearing. They had never experienced anything like it. Most species fought in silence, with dignity and honor. Humans fought with sound and fury. Direct hit on the lead ship, Ben reported as one of their modified missiles struck a Korthak vessel. The chemical payload spread across the bioship's hull, and the entire massive creature began to writhe in pain. The Korthak tried to respond with their usual tactics. They moved their ships into the swarm formation that had destroyed hundreds of other fleets. But the humans weren't fighting like other fleets. Jake ordered the ship to spin and twist through space in patterns that made no sense. The USS Ranger moved like a fighter aircraft instead of a large starship, using Earth combat techniques that no alien had ever seen. "They're trying to surround us," Lisa Carter reported from her position. "Let them," Jake replied. "Amy, release the pheromone disruptor." Dr. Amy Foster pressed a button, and invisible clouds of her chemical weapons spread through space. The Korthak bioships breathed it in through their living hulls, and suddenly their perfect coordination began to fall apart. On the Korthak command ship, the alien generals were screaming at each other in confusion. Their pheromone communication system was going crazy. Instead of clear orders, they were receiving mixed signals that made no sense. "Attack Formation 7, one general ordered. But his subordinates heard, "Retreat to Formation 3 because of the chemical interference." "Target the human ship," another commander shouted. His gunners heard, "Target our own ships," and began firing at their allies. Within minutes, the organized Korthak fleet became a confused mess of ships that couldn't communicate properly. Some vessels fired at enemies that weren't there. Others crashed into their own allies. The perfect swarm formation collapsed into chaos. "It's working," Amy said, watching her instruments with excitement. "Their communication system is completely disrupted." But Jake wasn't finished. "Tony, are you ready?" Marine Sergeant Tony Blake's voice came over the communication system from the ship's launch bay. "Ready and waiting, sir." "Do it." What happened? Next had never been attempted in the history of space warfare. Tony Blake and 12 other human Marines climbed into small pods that were basically metal boxes with engines. These pods were launched from the USS Ranger toward the nearest Korthak bioship, but they didn't land gently. Instead, they used explosive charges to blow holes in the enemy ship's hull and rode the escaping atmosphere directly into combat. The Korthak warriors inside their ship watched in shock as human soldiers came flying through the walls, carried by rushing air and debris. The aliens had expected boarding parties to dock politely and enter through airlocks like civilized beings. Humans, apparently, preferred to make their own doors. Tony Blake landed hard on the bioship's deck, rolled to his feet, and immediately began shooting. His modified weapons fired bullets designed to cause maximum pain to living tissue. The Korthak warriors, who were used to intimidating their enemies, found themselves facing humans who seemed to enjoy fighting in dangerous conditions. "Vacuum doesn't bother us much," Tony shouted, as he fought 3 Korthak warriors at once. "We're used to hostile environments." The alien warriors were bigger and stronger than humans, but they had never fought an enemy that used the ship's own atmosphere as a weapon. Every time the Marines blew another hole in the hull, the escaping air created chaos that helped the humans and hurt the aliens. Back on the USS Ranger, Kate Sullivan was having the time of her life. She had turned the ship's entire cargo bay into a massive bomb, and now she was looking for the perfect target. "Captain, I can detonate our cargo bay right next to their command ship," she reported. "It won't destroy us, but it will definitely ruin their day." "Do it," Jake ordered. The explosion lit up space like a small sun. The blast wave hit the Korthak command vessel and sent it spinning out of control. The bioship's living hull was covered in burn marks, and the aliens inside were too dizzy to fight effectively. Dr. Foster was monitoring the battle from her laboratory. "Captain, the Korthak vital signs are showing extreme stress. They're not used to this level of combat intensity." "What do you mean?" Jake asked. "They're having panic attacks. All of them. Their heart rates are off the charts, and their brain activity shows pure terror." On the Zalani ship, Vextar and High Counselor Yendai watched the battle with amazement and growing horror. The humans were fighting like creatures possessed. They took risks that should have killed them, used tactics that made no sense, and seemed to be enjoying themselves. "How are they doing this?" Yendai whispered. "They're not fighting to win," Vextar replied, beginning to understand. "They're fighting to make sure their enemies never want to fight them again." The tide of battle turned completely when the Korthak fleet tried to retreat. But Jake Morrison had studied enough military history to know that letting a dangerous enemy escape was a mistake. "Ben, pursue them," he ordered. "Make sure they understand that threatening peaceful species has consequences." The USS Ranger chased the fleeing Korthak ships, continuing to broadcast the footage of the battle to every inhabited system within 50 light years. The message was clear. This is what happens when you mess with humans. 3 Korthak ships tried to make a final stand. They turned to face the human vessel, determined to destroy these impossible creatures that had ruined their perfect battle record. They never got the chance. Kate Sullivan had saved her best weapon for last. She launched a missile that contained Tony Blake's entire remaining supply of explosive charges, plus Amy Foster's most concentrated batch of biological weapon, plus a recording of human heavy metal music that would play at maximum volume when it hit. The missile struck the lead Korthak ship and created an explosion that could be seen from 3 planets away. The other 2 enemy vessels immediately surrendered. "This is impossible," one of the Korthak commanders said over the communication channel. His voice was filled with fear and confusion. "You are too small, too weak. How did you defeat us?" Jake looked around his bridge at his crew. They were all injured, exhausted, and completely happy. "We're from Earth," he said simply. "Earth doesn't raise weaklings." The battle was over, but the real victory was just beginning. Word of the human victory was already spreading across the galaxy, carried by the footage they had broadcast. Every aggressive species that heard the story would think twice before attacking peaceful civilizations. And every peaceful species would know that if they called for help, the humans would answer. 3 weeks after the battle at Zephyria, Captain Jake Morrison sat in his ready room reading reports that seemed impossible to believe. The story of humanity's first contact with alien life had spread across the galaxy faster than anyone could have imagined. Commander Lisa Carter walked in carrying a datapad with the latest intelligence reports. "Sir, you need to see this." Jake looked at the information and shook his head in wonder. 12 Korthak colony worlds have surrendered without fighting? Yes, sir. Apparently, the surviving Korthak warriors spread the story of our battle tactics. Now their entire empire is falling apart. Most of their warriors are refusing to fight and their subject species are rebelling. Dr. Amy Foster entered the room, excitement clear on her face. "Captain, I just received a message from the Galactic Biology Institute. They want to study human combat psychology. Apparently, no other species has ever developed what they're calling controlled aggression." "What does that mean?" Jake asked. "It means we're the only species that can be completely peaceful one moment and absolutely terrifying the next moment, but still remain thinking and rational throughout the change." Jake thought about this. Most species are either always peaceful or always aggressive. Exactly. The peaceful species can't fight effectively when threatened because violence goes against their nature. The aggressive species fight all the time, but they can't control their anger or think clearly during battle. Humans are the only ones who can turn violence on and off like a switch while staying smart about it. The door chimed, and Lieutenant Commander Ben Rodriguez entered. "Sir, we're receiving another distress call." Jake stood up. "From who?" "A species called the Crystalli. They're made of living crystal, and they're being attacked by energy-based predators called the Devourers. The Crystalli say they've sent requests for help to 15 different species. Everyone is too afraid to help them." "Of course they are," Lisa said with a slight smile. "What do we know about these Devourers?" Ben checked his datapad. "They're pure energy beings that feed on crystal formations. They can move through space without ships and they're immune to most physical weapons. The Crystalli are completely helpless against them." Amy looked interested. "Energy beings that feed on crystals? That's fascinating from a scientific standpoint. And probably easy to fight if you know how," Jake said. "Energy beings need energy sources to survive. Cut off their food supply and they get weak fast." "Sir," Ben said, "the Crystalli are offering us their most advanced computer technology in exchange for help. Their processing systems are apparently thousands of years ahead of ours." Jake looked at his crew. They all had the same expression on their faces, the look of humans who had found someone who needed protection. "Set course for the Crystalli system," he ordered. "And send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we're starting a new branch of the military. We're going to call it the Galactic Protection Service." Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, High Counselor Yendai was meeting with leaders from 30 different peaceful species. The meeting was taking place on a neutral station, and every delegate was talking about the same thing: humans. "They saved us," said Ambassador Crean of the Soft Singers, a species that communicated through musical tones. "When the Metal Eaters attacked our world, we called for help. The humans arrived in 2 days and destroyed the entire invasion fleet. The same thing happened to us," added Representative Veloth of the Garden Worlds Alliance. "The Flame Raiders had been burning our colonies for months. No one would help us because the raiders were too dangerous. Then 3 human ships showed up and ended the threat in 6 hours. Yendai nodded. She had been collecting these stories for weeks. "It seems that whenever a peaceful species calls for help, humans respond. But they don't just defend us. They make sure the attackers never want to attack anyone again. That's what makes them different," said Elder Morrison of the Deep Thinkers. "Other warrior species fight for conquest or territory. Humans fight to protect others. It's like they've decided that peaceful species belong under their protection." "But why?" asked Ambassador Crean. "What do they gain from helping strangers?" Yendai thought about her conversations with Captain Morrison. I asked him the same question. He said that humans learned long ago that the strong should protect the weak. It's part of their basic nature. Even when it puts them in danger? Especially when it puts them in danger. Apparently, humans become more effective fighters when they're protecting someone else. The meeting continued for hours with more and more stories of human intervention. Pirates attacking trade ships found themselves facing human warships that appeared from nowhere. Slave raiders discovered that humans considered freedom a basic right worth fighting for. Aggressive empires learned that threatening peaceful worlds would bring swift and terrible retaliation. Back on the USS Ranger, the crew was preparing for their mission to help the Crystalli. Chief Engineer Kate Sullivan was modifying their weapons again, this time to fight energy-based enemies. The trick with energy beings, she explained to her team, is that they're basically living electricity. And what happens when you give electricity the wrong place to go? It gets disrupted and dissipates, one of her engineers replied. Exactly. So we're going to create energy traps. Big ones. Marine Sergeant Tony Blake was training his soldiers for fighting in a crystal environment. The Crystalli world is covered in crystal formations that can cut through steel, he told his Marines. But they also conduct energy perfectly. We can use that. How, Sergeant? Asked one of the younger Marines. If these devourers are made of energy, and the crystals conduct energy, then we can channel the enemy's own power against them. Turn their strength into their weakness. Dr. Foster was studying the biological data on energy beings. This is incredible, she muttered to herself. They're not really alive in the way we understand life. They're more like organized patterns of energy that can think. She paused, then smiled. Which means they can be confused if we disrupt their patterns. As the ship traveled toward the Crystalli system, Jake received a priority message from Earth. He opened it in his ready room and saw the face of Admiral Sarah Brooks, the head of Earth's Space Command. Jake, she said, I've been reading your reports. What you're doing out there is changing everything. We've received contact requests from over 40 alien species. Most of them want to establish friendly relations with us. She paused. But some of them are asking us to become their protectors. They want to join something they're calling the Human Protection Zone. Jake raised an eyebrows. Human Protection Zone? Apparently, word has spread that any species under human protection doesn't get attacked by aggressive civilizations. Pirates, raiders, and conquest empires are all avoiding systems where humans might show up. The Admiral's expression became serious. Jake, you and your crew have accidentally created a reputation that's changing the balance of power in this part of the galaxy. Peaceful species see us as saviors. Aggressive species see us as the thing they should avoid at all costs. Is that bad? Jake asked. No, it's exactly what we wanted. Earth Command is officially authorizing the Galactic Protection Service. You'll have authority to respond to any distress call from peaceful species. We're also sending more ships to help you. Jake smiled. How many ships? 20 to start. All volunteers. All crew members who want to help protect innocent people from bullies. As the USS Ranger dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the Crystalli homeworld, Jake looked at the beautiful planet covered in crystal formations that sparkled like diamonds. Dark energy clouds were moving around the planet like storms, consuming the crystal cities and leaving empty space behind. Sir, Ben reported, I'm detecting massive energy readings from those clouds. The Devourers are even more powerful than, the report suggested. Any sign of the Crystalli? A few survivors hiding in underground shelters, but at this rate they'll be consumed within hours. Jake stood up and looked at his crew. Well, people, we have another job to do. Someone called for help, and we're going to show these energy bullies what happens when they mess with people under human protection. As the ship moved into attack position, Jake made an announcement that would become famous throughout human space. Ladies and gentlemen, this is why we're out here. To make sure that when peaceful people call for help, Deathworlders answer with fury. The USS Ranger charged toward the energy storms, ready to add another chapter to humanity's growing reputation as the galaxy's protectors. And across the galaxy, other peaceful species who were facing their own threats began to send messages toward human space, knowing that help would come. The age of human protection had begun.